You know, when we think about World War II, we picture soldiers, tanks, and massive battles. But what if I told you that one of the most effective American units fought with inflatable tanks, giant speakers, and just pure creativity? No, this isn't some Hollywood movie. This is the incredible and for a long time top secret story of the Ghost Army.
Okay, so picture this. The war in Europe is over. A top German general, Alfred Jodl, is in an interrogation room, and an American officer drops a bombshell on him. He reveals that this huge Allied army group, the one Jodl and his staff had been meticulously tracking for months, the one they were terrified of, it never existed. It was all a phantom, a complete illusion.
I mean, that revelation just begs the question, right? How on earth did a little over 1,000 guys, just 1,100 men, convince the entire German army they were a force of 30,000? How did they pull off a trick so big it literally changed the course of the war?
Well, the unit behind this grand performance, its official name was the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. Yeah, a bit of a mouthful, but history gave them a much, much cooler name, the Ghost Army.
So what was their job exactly?
Well, their mission was totally unique. Think of them as a traveling roadshow of deception, a tactical theater company where the only audience was the German army. Their whole purpose was to impersonate other, much bigger U.S. units, tricking the enemy into looking one way, while the real punch was coming from somewhere else entirely. And look, this wasn't just some one-off trick. They were busy. From the beaches of Normandy all the way to the Rhine River, this unit was constantly on the move, staging over 20 major deception operations. And get this, it's estimated their work saved thousands, maybe tens of thousands of Allied lives. So who were these guys? Who were the men who could actually pull something like this off? Well, they were not your typical GIs, that's for sure. The army went out and recruited them for their creativity, not their combat experience. And this number right here really tells the story, 119. That was the average IQ of a soldier in the Ghost Army. These guys were smart. They were pulled from America's top art schools, ad agencies, and design firms, places like the Pratt Institute. We're talking about some of the most creative young minds of that generation. Yeah, their roster was just packed with talent. We're talking artists, architects, sound engineers, set designers, even actors. And what's wild is that a lot of these guys went on to become huge names after the war. You've probably heard of them. Fashion designer Bill Blass, the famous painter Ellsworth Kelly, photographer Art Kane. They all got their start in this crazy top secret unit. So how did a bunch of artists actually go to war? What were their weapons? Well, they had a whole toolkit of deception, you could say. It was basically a three-part strategy, a kind of multimedia performance designed to completely fool the enemy's senses. It all boiled down to three key things. First, visual deception. Second, sonic deception, what you could hear. And third, radio deception. Let's break down how each one worked.
Okay, this is just brilliant. This is the core of their visual deception. On one side, you've got a real M4 Sherman tank. It weighs 32 tons, it's made of steel, needs a crew of 5. On the other side, an inflatable dummy. It weighs less than 100 pounds, and 4 guys could pump it up. But from a German reconnaissance plane flying overhead, they looked exactly the same. They'd even drive bulldozers around to create fake tank tracks in the mud. Genius.
Then there was the sound. This is my favorite part. They had these massive speakers mounted on trucks, powerful enough to be heard up to 15 miles away, and they would blast these incredibly detailed recordings that their sound engineers had made. We're not just talking about engine noises. We're talking about the sounds of an entire division on the move, right down to soldiers cussing and complaining. They created an entire audio illusion. And the final piece of the puzzle was something they called spoof radio. See, every Morse code operator has their own unique sending style, their rhythm. It's called a fist. It's like a signature. So the Ghost Army's radio guys would listen in, learn the fist of an operator in a real unit, and then perfectly impersonate him. German intelligence would pick it up, think, oh, the 7th Armored Division is over there, when in reality they were 50 miles away, getting ready to attack. All right, so now that you know the tools they used, let's look at their masterpiece, their biggest and most important performance. Now, while the 23rd itself wasn't fully formed for D-Day, the techniques they perfected were at the absolute heart of the plan that made the Normandy invasion a success. The plan was called Operation Fortitude, and the goal was simple but huge: convince Hitler that the main Allied invasion was coming at Pas de Calais, which is the shortest route across the English Channel. It just made sense, right? To do it, they created an entire phantom army group, and they put the one general the Germans respected and feared the most, George S. Patton, in charge of it. And this chart, this shows you just how well it worked. The Germans absolutely bought it, hook, line, and sinker. On D-Day, as Allied troops were hitting the beaches in Normandy, a huge chunk of the German army, including their best tank divisions, were sitting around Pas de Calais, waiting for Patton's Phantom Army, an invasion that was never, ever coming. This left the real landing zones far less defended than they should have been. This quote from a captured German intelligence officer really says it all. After the war, when he was finally told that the massive army he'd been tracking was a complete fake, he said this. He realized they weren't just beaten on the battlefield. They were made to look like fools. The psychological blow was just as devastating.
So, after the war, you'd think these guys would be celebrated as heroes, right? Nope. The story of the Ghost Army was classified. The men were all sworn to secrecy, and their amazing story just vanished. It became one of the last great untold secrets of the entire war.
I mean, look at this timeline. Their story stayed top secret for 50 years. It wasn't until 1996 that the U.S. Army finally declassified the records, and it took all the way until 2024 for these incredible men, these combat con artists, to finally get the recognition they deserved, the Congressional Gold Medal.
You know, this official army analysis, which was written way back then but kept secret for decades, really sums it all up. For a group of so few men, their influence was just massive. They proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon you have isn't a bomb or a bullet, it's a really, really good idea.
And really, the story of the Ghost Army makes you think, doesn't it? In the art of war, in this world of steel and explosions, what is the true power of an idea? What's the value of pure imagination? Well, if you ask the Ghost Army, their legacy suggests it might just be priceless.